Good day, this is Q from Golden Circle Games. I'm going to talk about another of my own personal decks, one I've been refining and playing since I started playing Commander back in 2018. After the release of the Titans by Nissa, Kozilek's brood was said to have retreated to the remote corners of the world. It was generally believed that he'd left the plane of Zendikar. However, this assumption proved to be wrong when immediately after Ob Nixilis reignited his spark by draining the hedron network, imprisoning Ulamog. Kozilek emerged from the deep underground nearby. Kozilek the Great Distortion is a 10 mana 12/12, with when you cast this creature, if you have fewer cards than 7 cards in your hand, you draw cards equal to the difference. He has Menace, and when you discard a card, you can counter a spell on the stack that has the same converted mana cost. The aim of the deck is to control the game until we can get our big Eldrazi creatures out and use the annihilation triggers to put opponents behind, get them out of the game, and either swing out with commander damage or swing with big Eldrazi for the win. There's a small side win con where we can hit players with Infect but for the most part we're going to play big scary creatures and make people sacrifice their stuff. The cost of this deck is around $1,000 or 670 euros. First up we have Mana Crypt. At the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you. Then you can tap it to add 2 colourless mana. Soul Ring, tap it, add 2 colourless mana. Everflowing Chalice, multi-kicker 2. Everflowing Chalice enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it for each time it was kicked, and then you can tap it for a colourless mana for each charge counter on Everflowing Chalice. We have Mind Stone, tap, add a colourless, or you pay 1, sacrifice it, draw a card. Prismatic Lens, tap, add a colourless, pay 1, add 1 mana of any colour. This is particularly good against the colourless void artifact that stops you from playing colourless spells. Thought Vessel, you have no maximum hand size, tap, add a colourless. We have Ornithopter Paradise, artifact creature with flying, add 1 mana of any colour when we tap it. Foundry Inspector, artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Inspiring Statuary allows us to play non-artifact spells with our artifacts. We can tap any artifact to cast it, so even ones that aren't mana artifacts. Unstable Obelisk, tap to add a colourless, or we pay 7 into it, sacrifice it and destroy a target permanent. Pretty good as a removal card. Warm Power Stone, enters the battlefield tapped. That's okay because it taps for 2 when it does untap. Palladium Mirror, taps to add 2 mana of any colour, of colours, 2 colourless mana, and it's a 2/2 creature. Into the 4 mana rocks now. We've got Thran Dynamo, which taps for 3 colourless. Hedron Archive, taps for 2 colourless. You pay 2, draw 2 cards by sacrificing the Hedron Archive. Empowered Autogenerator, enters the battlefield tapped, and then every time we tap it we put a charge counter on it, and we get mana for each charge counter on it, which can really help us in the late game. We have Joyrus Familiar, artifact creature with flying. Historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Most, if not all, the cards in this deck are historic cards. Solemn Simulacrum, when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card. We go get a waste, put that card on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. We get the added benefit if it dies, you get to draw a card. Expedition Map, we pay 2, sacrifice it, search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand. It's a pretty good one for getting one of our Tron lands, and we'll talk about the Tron lands later. Blinkmoth Urn, at the beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase. If Blinkmoth Urn is untapped, that player adds a colourless to his or her mana pool. We generally get the better benefit out of this, and if we've got Inspiring Statuary out, we can tap it, so we don't have to worry about our opponents getting too much value off of it, but generally it benefits us more than it benefits other players. Forsaken Monument, colourless creatures, you get +2/+2, doesn't really matter too much in this deck, but whenever you tap a permanent for colourless, add an additional colourless mana, so we can double our mana payoffs. Whenever you cast a colourless spell, you gain 2 life. We have Ugin the Ineffable, which is a planeswalker, makes our colourless spells cost 2 less to cast, +1, exile top card of our library face down, look at it, create a 2/2 green spirit creature token, and when that token leaves the battlefield we can put the exile card in our hand. -3, destroy target permanent that's 1 or more colours. Pretty good removal in this deck, and that's generally what we'll be using it for. Ugin the Spirit Dragon, again another pretty good removal in the deck. +2, exile, deal 3 damage to any target. -X, so we can pay anything into X. Exile each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X or less that's 1 or more colours. That's not going to affect our board at all. -10, you gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and put up to 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield, and it's not too difficult to have plenty of cards in our hand in this deck. For board wipes, we have All Is Dust. Each player sacrifice all coloured permanents they control, so it can be fairly devastating to most players, especially if you've got It That Betrays out, which is one of our Eldrazi, that we get all those permanents. Oblivion Stone, pay 4, put a fate counter on a target permanent, and then pay 5, tap it, sacrifice it, destroy each non-land permanent without a fate counter on it, and then remove all fate counters from all permanents. Nevinyrral's Disc, enters the battlefield tapped, pay 1, destroy all artifacts, creatures and enchantments. Real key point there, it says destroy all artifacts, creatures and enchantments. So if we do have the Darksteel Forge out that doesn't destroy our stuff, we get to keep all our stuff. All their stuff gets destroyed. Scour from Existence, 7 mana, exile target permanent. Duplicant, when Duplicant enters the battlefield you may exile target non-token creature, and as long as the card exiled with Duplicant is a creature card, Duplicant has its power and toughness and creature types of that creature card exiled with Duplicant. It's still a shapeshifter. Pretty good removal card plus a body on the field. Warping Whale is an instant that exiles a creature with a power toughness or less. Generally not paying it for that, we're paying 2 to counter target sorcery spell. Put 1/1 colourless creature onto the battlefield, it has sacrifice, add a mana to your pool. We might use that if we're really stuck, but generally we're looking to counter those sorcery spells that might wipe out our board. Steel Hellkite is a artifact creature dragon with flying. Pay 2, it gets +1/+0 until the end of the turn. And we can pay X, destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X, whose controller was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite this turn. Activate only once each turn. Chroma's Memorial, creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and red, which is pretty cool for playing our Eldrazi. If we can play our Eldrazi, we can swing in for that winning kill. Thran Temporal Gateway, pay 4, tap it, put a historic card from your hand onto the battlefield. Pretty good for putting out some of the more degenerate stuff in our deck for very much cheaper than what it costs. But we don't get those cast triggers from our Eldrazi, so we usually avoid paying our Eldrazi. We might put a Chroma's Memorial or Darksteel Forge out, or even Planer's Bridge, which is coming up, to get the true value out of our deck. Unwinding Clock, untap all artifacts you control during each other player's untap step. Planer Bridge, pay 8, search your library for a permanent card, put it into the battlefield, then shuffle your library. pretty decent card, especially if you've got Unwinding Clock out. Pretty epic. Playing a Portal, I put this into the deck recently. Actually, it's been absolutely fantastic. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. If you've got Kozilek out, if you've got Playing a Portal out, and you need to counter a spell that gets rid of something you don't want to get rid of for your board, like you're playing a bridge or something like that, you tap Playing a Portal, you get a spell into your hand that's the same converted mana cost, and then you can discard it. Pretty epic for this deck. Conduit Ruin, when you cast Conduit Ruin, you may search your library for a colourless creature card with converted mana cost 7 or greater, reveal it, then shuffle your library, put that card on top of it. The first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. Geo Golem, great for getting your commander out early game. It's an artifact creature. We put a Swiftfoot Boots on it. It's got trample. When it deals combat damage to a player, we cast our commander from the command zone without paying its mana cost. Draw our 7 cards, get our value out of it. Wandering Archaic, whenever an opponent casts an instant sorcery spell, they may pay 2. If they don't, you get a copy of that spell. It has another side to it. Each player looks at the top 5 cards of their library, reveals a land card and or instant with a sorcery card from among them, then puts that card onto they revealed this way into their hand, and the rest onto the bottom of their library in a random order. Each player gains 3 life. It's okay in a pinch, but not really what we want to cast it for. We want Wandering Archaic out as quickly as possible. Hopefully we can get some value out of other people's ramp spells or removal spells or something like that that they don't want to pay 2 for. Darksteel Forge. Artifacts you control have indestructible. Great way of protecting ourselves from removal. Manifold Key. Tap, pay 1. Untap another target artifact. Can possibly ramp us a little bit. Pay 3. Tap, target creature can't be blocked. Allows our commander to be unblockable. Predator Flagship. Legendary artifact. Target creature, pay 2, target creature gains flying to the end of turn. Great way of making our commander unblockable. Pay 5, tap, destroy target creature with flying. Great way to protect ourselves from unblockable creatures. Void Winnower, your opponents can't cast spells with even converted mana cost. 0 is even. Your opponents can't block with creatures that have even converted mana costs, which allows us to swing with our commander sometimes without being blocked because we have Menace. Not many people have the same converted mana cost across the board, and if they have loads of tokens they can't just chump block it, so works out pretty well for our deck. Silent Arbiter. No more than 1 creature can attack each combat, and no more than 1 creature can block each combat, which is fantastic for our commander because it makes our commander essentially unblockable as he has Menace. Endbringer. Untap Endbringer during each player's untap step. We can tap it, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. We pay 1 colorless, target creature can't attack or block this turn. Pay 2, tap it, draw a card, which can be a way of protecting ourselves, can be a way of drawing a few cards. Breaker of Armies is an Eldrazi creature. All creatures able to block Breaker of Armies do so. It's a 10/8, it's pretty big. We could probably get rid of quite a few things on somebody's board whether we swing with it. Although I've never really got there. Most of the time it's just a target for removal, and rightly so. And hopefully, I always hope it is when I put it on the battlefield. Platinum Angel, flying. You can't lose the game. Opponents can't win the game, so it's a good way of protecting yourself. Then we have Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves, both of which give our creatures either Hexproof or Shroud and Haste. They equip for with Swiftfoot Boots equips for 1, Lightning Greaves equips for 0. Great cards in this deck for protecting our creatures, protecting our commander, getting some damage in quick with the degenerate stuff that we play. Okay, we have Sensei's Divining Top. Pay 1, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order. And we can tap, draw a card, then put Sensei's Divine on top of its owner's library. It's a great way of protecting itself. Mystic Forge. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast the top card of your library if it's an artifact card or a colourless non-land card. And then we can pay 1 life, exile the top card of our library, kind of filter a little bit there. And if we've got Foundry Inspector on the field or one of our other mana savers, we can actually draw quite a lot of cards from Sensei's Divine Top by casting it for free off the top of our library and just keep drawing cards by tapping it, draw a card, cast it for free off the top of our library, draw it, so on and so forth. Vidalcan Ori gives all our non-land cards a flash for 4 mana. 6 mana, Immortal Sun just has so many words on it. Players can't activate Planeswalker abilities. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and creatures you control get +1/+1. I should imagine this was meant to be 2 cards. For some reason this was 1 card. Mind's Eye. Whenever your opponent draws a card, you may pay 1. If you do, you also draw a card. Mere Battlesphere, which is an artifact creature. When it enters the battlefield, create 4 1/1 colourless Mere artifact creature tokens. And when Mere Battlesphere attacks, you may tap X amount of Meres you control. If you do, Mere Battlesphere gets +X/+0 till the end of the turn and deals X amount of damage to target player or planeswalker it's attacking. And then we have Blightsteel Colossus. If we can get this in for quick, and we can get this in after a board wipe. It has Trample, Infect, Indestructible. If Blightsteel Colossus will be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal it and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. So we have the big beaters now. Emrakul, the Promised End, is an Eldrazi that costs 1 less to cast for each creature type and each card type and cards in your graveyard. And when you cast Emrakul, you may gain control of target opponent's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn. It has Flying, Trample, Protection from instants, and is a 13/13. Pretty powerful card there. The Betrays, great to have out if you have all this dust or Annihilator triggers going off. It has Annihilator to itself, and when an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put that card into the battlefield under your control. Whenever they sacrifice a permanent, you get it. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. When you cast this spell, draw 4 cards, Annihilator 4, and when Kozilek, Butcher of Truth is put into the graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their graveyard into their library, so it gives you protection from mill decks. Then we have Oblivion Sir. When you cast Oblivion Sir, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of his or her library, and then you may put any number of land cards that player owns from exile onto the battlefield under your control. It's a 5/8, it's pretty good, pretty decent card. Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, is a 10 mana 10/10, and when you cast Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, you exile 2 permanents. It's indestructible, and when Ulamog attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of his or her library. Great to play. Ulamog, attack somebody, exile the top 20 cards of their library, cast Oblivion Sower, get as many lands from the exile that they have in exile as much as possible. Ulamog, the Infinite Gaia. When you cast a spell, destroy target permanent, indestructible, Annihilator 4, and when Ulamog, the Infinite Gaia, is put into the graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their graveyard into their library. Again, more protection from mill. Fantastic card. Moving on to the lands now, and I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. We've got Ark of Orazca that taps for a colourless. It also allows you to ascend, and if you pay 5 into it, you can draw a card, activate only if you have the City's Blessing, which means you've got 10 or more permanents in play. Ash Barrens, tap, make a colourless, or you can tap 1 and cycle for a basic land. Bonder's Enclave, tap for a colourless, pay 3, draw a card, activate if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. Not too difficult in this deck. Buried Ruin, tap, add a colourless, pay 2, sacrifice it, return artifact from the graveyard to your hand. Cryptic Caves, pay, add a colourless, Pay 1, sacrifice it, draw a card. Only activate it if you have 5 or more lands. Darksteel Citadel, indestructible artifact land. Pays for a colourless. Drownyard Temple, tap, add a colourless. 3, return it from the graveyard to battlefield in case you get your lands taken away, wiped out. Eldrazi Temple, tap, add 1 mana to your mana pool. Tap, add 2 mana to your mana pool. Spend it to cast Eldrazi or activate abilities of colourless Eldrazi. Emergent Zone, tap for a colourless, or you pay 1. You may cast spells this turn as though they have flash. You've got to sacrifice it though to do that. Eye of Ugin, colourless Eldrazi spells cost 2 less to cast. Pay 7, search your library for a colourless creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand and shuffle your library. Field of Ruin, tap, add a mana of any of colourless. Pay 2, sacrifice it, destroy a non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield, then shuffles. Forge a Hero, tap it to add 1 colourless, or tap, choose commander that enter the battlefield this turn, put a 1/1 counter on it if it's a creature, and a loyalty counter if it's a planeswalker. Foundry of the Consoles, tapped, add a colourless, pay 5, sacrifice it, create 2/1/1 colourless Thopter artifact token with flying, pretty good in a pinch. Homeward Path, tap it to add a colourless, tap it, each player gains control of all the creatures he or she owns, great to stop your commander getting used against you or your Eldrazi creatures getting used against you. Phyrexia's Core, tap it to add a colourless, pay 1, sacrifice it, you gain 1 life. Radiant Fountain, when it enters the battlefield you gain 2 life, tap it to add a colourless. Reliquary Tower, you have no maximum hand size, tap it to add a colourless. Rogue's Passage, tap it to add a colourless, pay 4 into it, target creature can't be blocked to his turn, great for making our commander unblockable. Sanctum of Eternity, tap it to add a colourless, pay 2 into it, return target commander you own from the battlefield to your hand, activate this ability only during your turn. Sanctum of Ugin, tap it, add 1 mana to your mana pool. Whenever you cast a colourless spell with converted mana cost 7 or greater, you may sacrifice it. If you do, search your library for a colourless creature card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Sea Great Wreckage, tap it to add a colourless, or you tap 2 and a colourless mana, draw a card, activate it only if you have no cards in hand. Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, tap, add a colourless, tap, add 2 colourless, spend this mana only to cast colourless spells, and you can only activate it if you control 7 or more lands. Spawning Bed, tap to add a colourless, 6, tap, sacrifice it, put 3/1/1 Eldrazi Scion token creatures on the battlefield that have sacrificed this creature, add 1 mana to your mana pool. Temple of the False God, tap it to add 2 colourless and activate only if you control 5 or more lands. Thespian Stage, tap it, add a colourless, pay 2 into it. Thespian Stage becomes a copy of target land except it has this ability. Then we've got War Room, which you tap to add a colourless, or you pay 3, pay life equal to the number of colours in your commander coloured identity, and draw a card, which means you're never going to pay life for that because you don't have any colours in your commander's identity. Then we have our Tron lands, which is Urza's Mine, Urza's Power Plant, Urza's Tower, which each tap for 1 mana, but if they're all out, Urza's Mine and Urza's Power Plant tap for 2, and Urza's Tower taps for 3, and I love the arts on these, they're absolutely fantastic. And finally, last but not least, we have 9 Wastes as our basic lands for the deck.
Thanks so much for watching our video. Deck list is in the description below, Please like, subscribe, comment. If you wish to have a look at Moxfield, our other deck lists on Moxfield, please see the links below. We also have links below for our Discord. Come play games with us, come enjoy some Commander games, and we welcome any players of all different walks of life. So welcome to you, and we look forward to seeing you in our Discord or in our next video. Good luck and goodbye.